everybody, to this version of creating assessment frameworks in PerformancePlus, put on by Demonstrated Success today. And I think in the ad for this webinar, we said that this was for, a little bit advanced users and some people who are pretty used to using PerformancePlus. Please ask questions today. There's Heather, I'm Anne, and here are our little pictures.
And I'm apologizing, we had two webinars that were scheduled for the same time. So we're just trying to figure out which platforms we can use for each webinar. I have Karen on the phone here because she has another team of people that are trying to get on the same webinar. So
they have a meeting, I think, so they can probably switch. I think theirs is a meeting, so they can switch to another meeting. She can send them another link. Theirs is not a register. They don't have to register.
Right. Okay, yeah.
So we've already restarted.
Okay.
So, Karen, so why don't you pick, Heather's going to be on after she talks to Karen, and she is going to monitor for questions. So please ask questions. This is, if you've used these before, they're a little bit complicated or they just get stuck on things. Ask questions, definitely. And Heather will either interrupt or wait a couple minutes and then ask me. Oh, there she is again.
Sorry. Hi.
Are they all set?
Yes.
They're all set. Good. Okay. So today, the goals of today are we're going to learn about the purpose of an assessment framework, and you may already know if you're interested in them. We're going to learn to understand the two different types and their uses, and I'm going to turn off my picture because it's distracting. And you're going to learn to create the framework that will give you the reports you want. And it really is, depending on how you set up your framework, will give you different results in reports. So we're going to have an introduction, types, building the framework, entering and seeing the data, and then wrap up. So an assessment framework is something in PerformancePlus in the computer that will help you store your results from assessments. You set up things like how many questions, what types of questions, the number of points for the questions, and how would you like the data reported. So that's everything sort of, you just have to go through and answer each one. There are two types of assessment frameworks in PerformancePlus. The first one is if you're just going to store totals, no question results. You don't want to know how Johnny answered every single math fact question. You just want to know how many he got right. And the other one is you want to store totals and questions. So you want to know how he answered every single question. When you look at Performance Tracker, this is what it says, Performance Tracker assessments. They define the sections. I mean, it's not really that clear what they mean. So just remember, the Performance Tracker are no questions, and the Assessment Builder has questions. Frameworks with no questions are things like math facts, where you're just storing the total number that the student got correct on this assessment. Or a social studies assessment, where this is social studies, the first assessment, the second one, and the third one. And you just want to keep track of the total score on each assessment. And again, here's another one. If you had a writing assessment that had multiple sections that are stored, that are scored with a rubric, your rubric might have 4 points for evidence, 4 points for organization, and 2 points for convention. And you'd have to keep track of how every student did. And then you can put the total in. You can put the total for evidence, the total, instead of, well, in this kind of, you could only use the total. A framework with questions is anyone where you want to keep track of how the students answered the questions, or whether they got them right or wrong sometimes. So in this case, whatever this assessment is, a 1 is correct and a 0 is wrong. In this one, the actual answer was entered. You want to enter the actual answer into PerformancePlus, and you can do it either way. So this is another example of a framework with questions. So you've got all these questions 1 through 9, possible points that they could get. So this is just something you've done by hand in your book or however you keep track. These are the standards that you looked up, and then you know that each question, here's question 1 is standard RL, reading literature 1, reading literature 2. And they got it right or they got it wrong. They got it right or they got it wrong. And you could just go through and enter all that data in. So that's sort of the overview of what an assessment framework is. And I'm going to start. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Anne. Is there a rule of thumb? We have a question about, is there a rule of thumb for the types of assessments that you put into Performance Plus? Are there some that you maybe should or maybe shouldn't put into Performance Plus?
Yes. There's a rule of thumb. There's no definite to it. Any assessment that you're going to give every single year, especially if you're never going to change it, or not never, but if you're going to have the same assessment for a few years, those are good assessments to put in, because then you can look back over the years and find out, oh, everybody's always had trouble with geometry. We should pay attention to that. If you're just giving a one-time assessment, it's not worth the effort. But it is worth it if you want to be able to look back over data. And there's been many times where I've gone back and looked over some data that's been stored in P+.
Great, thanks.
Any more about just general assessment frameworks, or?
Not yet. I don't think so. Thank you.
I'm going to go and start showing you how to build a framework. So to start, remember we've got these two kinds. We've got one with no questions, just totals, and one with questions. So I'm going to start with the no question one and assume this is my assessment. So I've got a writing rubric or writing prompt, and I want my students to read 2 articles and listen to this. And then their task is to write an opinion piece on what they read. So that's the task. You go through, you score them all using this rubric. So they're either going to, for the purpose and organization, they get 4 points or 0 to 4 points. Evidence or elaboration, they get 0 to 4 points. And conventions, they get 0 to 2 points. So you go through and you score each student, and you have to keep track somewhere. You have to write it down either on their paper or on another piece of paper. So that's, nothing's changed yet. You still have to do that. And this is what it might look like. So here are my students, evidence, etc. So these are all how they all scored. Now I could just store it in a spreadsheet. I could just store it in Google Sheets. But the benefit of putting it into Performance Plus is, one, it's stored over the years and you can look at how students are doing generally. But also, once this goes into this for the student, you can, when you open up Adele's student page, you'll see how she's done on all these assessments, any assessment that's been put into P+, including state, local, national assessments. So everything's in one place. So that's the benefit. I'm going to go live, and let's hope that it's working today. Let's put this down, get rid of this, and get rid of this. And this. So here are my results. Oops, I don't know why I closed that. So here are my results over here. I'm going to keep them so we can see them. And I'm going to go to Heather. Does this work, having the screen split like that, or is it just too small?
It looks good. It's a little small, but it's not bad.
All right, well, maybe I'll just go over a little bit like this. So I'm going to go to assessments. This is the icon for assessments. And I know what grade level it is. I know what subject it is, but I really want to create a new assessment. And I'm actually in a training database. So this is really old. It's not going to have any, it doesn't have anything new in it. It only goes back to there. So I'm going to create a new assessment. And as I said, the performance tracker is for just storing totals, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to click on that and go to next. And now I have to tell the computer a little bit about what this is. This is an ELA test. Is that an option? Yes. And it's for 4th grade. And I could choose local, national, state, or a survey, but it's local because I'm the one doing it. I could choose whatever I want here. I'll say it's a benchmark. Again, you can choose whatever you want here. And then what's the name of the assessment? I'm going to call it ABC, and I already have some made. No question, if I spell it right, webinar. No question webinar, no question assessment. And then what's the date? Let's say I'm going to give it on 1/22/2021, although it won't let me do that. Probably I'm going to have to change that actually, 2014. And there it is. And how many sections am I going to have? Let's see. What is a section? So I'm going to actually, for this one, I'm going to have 4 sections. I'm going to have a section that holds the conventions, a section for organization, a section for evidence, and then I'll have a total section. So that's 4 sections. If I put in 10 and I don't use them all, that's fine. If I put in 3, I can add another one, but I know it's 4 this time. So I put in 4 and I create the assessment. This is where you start building it. So it created 4 sections for me. Here's section 1 and some information, section 2, 3, and 4. I am going to start giving names to my section. So the first one is evidence. And I'll fill in those in a minute. Second one is organization. Third one is conventions. And the fourth one is total. So I've got that. I'm going to save it. Save a lot because sometimes it goes down. Now I'm going to fill in a little bit of this. The only things I'm going to be entering in here are numbers 0 through 4. So numbers only is fine. Then I have to put something in this row, cut points. I have to tell the system what the cut points are. These other 2, the top and the bottom rows, are just comments, which I usually do fill in. But in this case, anything from a 0 to a 1, is a level 1. Anything from a 1 to a 2, and then a 3, and then a 4. So those are all my cut points. Why did my mail open? And I don't want it to auto score. I'm going to actually auto score means that it will score, but I'm going to actually enter the scores in. The max points are 4. And that's pretty much all I have to do there. It's the same.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Just a quick question on the cut points.
Uh-huh.
So that one has 4 numbers here. If it were out of 10 points, you don't put a range in there. You just put the number that is the highest number that would get that particular. Okay.
Yep. If this was a 0 to 3, and this was 4 to 6 points, etc., I'd put in a 3 here, a 6 here. And I'm going to do that with the next assessment, so you'll see. And I can leave that or not because it's just comments.
Okay. Hopefully that answered. Yep. Great.
Good. Okay. So max points, and I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. Creating these with no questions is really simple. Again, 4 points. Oh no, this is 2 points. So a 0 to 1 and then a 2. That's all I have. But I actually would say a 2 is green, right? And maybe a 1 is yellow. So I put a 0 here, a 1, and a 2. And you can't get this, but I still have to put a number in. So I can put any number in. You can't get more than a 2. So that's what I would do. Because a 1, you get something there. And then for the total, what is the total? How many? So we've got 4, 4, and 2. So the most you can get is 10 points. It's numbers only. I want it to auto score. So I want it to auto total. And I want to show it on the student detail page. I could say, don't show it on the student detail page, but I'd like to show it on the student detail page. I could show any of these on the student detail page, but if you show every single section, the detail page starts getting pretty cluttered. So in this one, you kind of have to decide. The top is 10. Let's say, if you get an 8 or a 9, I'll just write these here for a minute. If I get an 8 or a 9, that's a proficient. And if I get a 6 to a 7, that's partially proficient, and anything that's, I'm probably being a little harsh, but so anything up to a 5, 0 to 5 is low. So in here, I would put 5, 7, 9, and 10. And there's no rules about it. You just have to decide. If you have, is 90% okay, 80%, 60%, you have to decide. And in here, if I don't put anything in this alternate description, it's going to default to this. And that's just so long. I'll just say level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And I'd like to put an alternate in here too. So needs help, you can put anything in. Dog, cat, you can put any words you want in here and it will use them. I'll And I'll show you that again in the math example. So once that's all done, you save it. And actually, it's done. You could actually enter some data in now. So if I wanted to do this, I think you can. We'll see. This is, I'm going to go back to here. Here's assessments. And now I want to see it. So 4th grade. And I think I made it for that this year, but I can't remember, but we'll see in a minute. And I'm going to say show assessments. Nope, I must have made it for this year.
You made it for 2004. Yeah, 2014.
This is the one I made. So here it is. I'm going to click on it. And so you can see this is the assessment detail page. It's got all the information in it. If I had, oh yeah, this is the one interesting. I created, what's the name of this? This is the pre-made one. I actually filled it all in so you could see it. It's exactly the same, but I put these words in and these words so you could see how they come out differently. And this assessment is for 2014 and 2015. 10 students have already been entered for this, but now I want to grade some students. I want to put some information in. So I can click on, find the year and click on it. And I've got my right here, my student list, 4th grade, this district, and the school was, oh dear, what was it? I thought it was Maple. Let's see, I can't find it. So let's just see what we get. No, there are too many. Interesting. Well, that's, oh, I know why. I know why. Let's District 1. Because that's student groups. That's not school. That should just work then. Why is this not showing me students? That's not good. Click here to add a student. Let's add a, no, I don't want to show you that actually. I don't want to add a student. Let's come back to that because I am going to do it for the math example. So I'm going to go back to the assessments page. Except it doesn't want to. Okay. And pre-made with just totals. Pre-made with just questions. So I'm going to go back to this pre-made with just totals. This is the one we did. If I want, I can upload scores. I have this spreadsheet. In order to upload them, you can put them into a spreadsheet. And I have to open the document that has it. There are a lot of steps to get this done. So that you just have to go through them. But if you've worked with computers before, you can almost intuit some of them. But so I have to have a file, and I created a file. Here's my file of those students, and here's how they each scored. You have to save it as a CSV file, or create it originally as a CSV file, and you do that by going here. And oh, that's Macintosh comma. I don't know what the difference is, but I just pick one that looks like the right one. So there's a CSV file. I don't know if that's going to be the right format. So I'm going to close this. And I want to upload scores. And it gives me two options. I can either have the student code and then the answer, or I can have the student code with one answer, the student code, the same student with the next answer, and the same student with the next answer. I always pick this one. I've never used the other one. So you can check either one. So my file has one row for each student. I choose the file, and I'm going to upload this. And hopefully it'll work. No, it didn't. Good. So I'm going to choose this other file that I made the other day. Well, that's got questions. No. Let's see. So it's listed right there. And now it's going to let me. So now I have to match the names in the framework to the names in the file. So in my file, let's open that file again. I've got one column. That first one has to be student code. It actually has to be student underscore code. The second one has to be, it can be anything I want. And I called it EV. Actually, I'm sorry. I should have just deleted this. This is the one, I hope. No, it isn't. I'm going to try one more time. Okay, this is the one that I'm trying to upload. I don't know if you can see that, but the first column has to be student underscore code. And it has to be the student's code in Performance Plus. My second column, I don't care about the grade level and school building. I don't have to upload that because the student code gives the computer all that information. My first column, my B column is EVID. EVID, I want to map that to evidence. Organization, ORG, maps to organization in the framework. CONV, which you can't see, maps to conventions in the framework. And then I go next. It'll tell me if I have errors. There are no errors, so I'm going to click next. And it uploaded 11 of them. We go back to the assessment detail. It says it uploaded 11, but it didn't. Interesting. That's not good. It should have. I'm going to look at this year. So these are not the same names, and these are fake names. So don't worry that I'm showing you something I shouldn't be. But now I can see my students. And this is a student detail page for Owen. So you can see all the assessments he's taken. And here's this test right here. He did great. That was the comment that I put under the green in the framework. So if I click on that, and you can see, let's see, that's the only piece of this assessment that shows on the student detail page, because that's the only one I chose to do that. Now I can see each piece, and I can see how he did. I didn't put max scores in on those, or maybe I did, but so that's good. So now we can make a report from that. That data's in there. I'm going to go back to assessment detail page and just see if I can, maybe I can hand enter. No, that's not what maybe I can hand enter into this one. Grade students, click on that. Oh, this was the problem. Show my students. Huh. I don't know why that is. I'm not going to worry about it, and I'm going to hope that it's okay with the math. So we will get back to that. So that's all there is to creating and actually using the assessment framework with no questions. It's pretty easy. You just have to remember all the steps. And in order to do that, you can watch this video again and stop it when you need to, or you can call us and ask us. Don't spin your wheels about it, because that can be really tiresome, obviously.
So just
yep.
a question, where you had the zeros and you thought maybe you had put it, you know, like what the total possible points were, are you able to go back and edit a framework that you put in? So one that's already in there,
Yeah.
and maybe you goofed on and did something on it or wanted to change it, you can edit them at any time?
Yeah, let's go back in. And let's say I want to change like the totals. Those were a little harsh. So let's say I want a 9 or a 10 is blue. So what I want to do is go to the rubric setup and go down to my totals. And then I could say this is a 7 or an 8. And this is a 9. Whoops. This is a 9 or a 10. And then I can change this to an 8 and save it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, you can edit any of this stuff, and you will edit it, because the first couple times it's like, oh, this isn't right at all. Yeah, I didn't put max points in here, so I do need the max points. I guess this was the one I made yesterday. So back to assessment. So that's definitely call if you're going to do that, because remembering all those steps is not that easy. And do we have our phone number at the end? We'll see. If we don't, we will give it to you. Our emails are definitely there. So now let's go on to the math one. I'm going to show you what I have first. So I have a file. Let's see. Here's my Unit 5 assessment. This is what it looks like. Make it bigger. So you have an assessment. You wrote it, or you got it out of your book. These standards are not necessarily the right standards. I just made them up so they could do it quickly. So here's a question. It's worth 4 points. Question number 1 is worth 4 points, and it's standard for OA1. It helps a lot if you mark your assessment like this. Put the standard, put the number of points. Put the standard, put the number of points. You could put the right answers if you want. So I've got this huge assessment, not huge, I thought it had 15 questions. And I've got all the standards listed, and if it's a multiple choice, it's 1 point. So that's my assessment. Then what I like to do is collect my thoughts before I start on a framework with questions, because it is a little more confusing. So what I do is I have this little worksheet and I just make it up. Doesn't really, I just make it on when I'm making a framework. So all I need to know is here are the questions. Actually, I wonder if I can see them both at once. That's not my assessment. That's my assessment. And here's my little cheat sheet thing. So question number 1 is open-ended, OE, and it's worth 4 points in the OA section, or the OA category, operations and algebraic thinking. Section number 2, or question number 2, also open-ended, also worth 4 points in OA. Question number 3, open-ended, worth 4 points. Let's find one that isn't. Okay, question 4, it's multiple choice, and it's worth 1 point in the OA section. It's an OA standard. Again, keep going. I'm going to go down to question 9 now. Question 9 is now in numbers in base 10, NBT question. So it's multiple choice, and it's worth 1 point in this column. So I go through and I fill out this form so that I then know how many points I'm going to have. This as a section, this as a section, and this as a section. This section is worth 23 points. This one's worth 7, and this one's worth 3. Does that make sense? I hope. It's a little bit confusing.
Yes.
Okay, so now I've got that, and I've got my question, and I've got, these are my students, and this is how they answered. So I've got question 1 through 9, although it's 1 through 15, and 1, 0s, etc. And actually, that's not going to completely line up. So again, it's a 4th grade assessment, but I want to create a new one. So this time it's this kind of assessment. It's an assessment builder, defining assessment questions and generating a framework. That I don't want to, and that's, we wanted to generate it, but actually you're generating it. And click on next. It's a math assessment. It's 4th grade. It's local. Doesn't matter. This is good. And it's ABC with questions. With questions. And let's say I'm going to give it on that date. Let's say 14. And in this school year. And how many questions? It has 15 questions. How many sections? Let's see, I have that on my little spreadsheet here. 1, 2, 3, and a total. So 4 sections. Again, create the assessment. So right now, this is what it looks like. It's a little bit different looking. And now I need to know the multiple choice and the open-ended. I can start by changing all these, or I can start putting the questions in, whichever way I want. But right now I'll just go in and change these. So I'll just do the first few. That's an open-ended question. Open-ended, open-ended. And then question number 4 is multiple choice. So I'll leave that. I'm going to save it and go back up here. So now I need my assessment because I need to remember what the questions were. Here are my questions. I got to go up to question 1. Now here I'm going to enter in the question. I don't have to enter in the whole question, just enough so that I know which question it is. So I type in 1, even though this says 1, because if I have a 1A, then these numbers are all out of alignment. So this is question number 1, and it starts with Mr. Torres sold. That's all I need. That's the first couple words. I could write more, but I don't need to. Question number 2.
Does that have a limit to the amount of information? So if you did want to put the whole question in,
I don't know. I've never reached the limit, so probably not.
Okay.
Question number 2. 4 teachers. Oops, if I spell it right. So 4 teachers. Question number 3. 5 students. Students. And question number 4 is on Kelly's homework. Whoops. Did I do one of those correctly? Probably not. And guess what? I'm going to save it again just in case. So you go through and you enter all of those. You put in all the words. If it's a multiple choice question, like this one, you could tell it what the answer is, and then you can enter in a B instead of a 1 or 0 for correct. If the student entered a B and you enter a B, it will get 1 point. This question is worth 4 points. This one is worth 4 points, and this one is worth 4 points. So this one is worth 1. I never use these. I'm never quite sure what I would do with them, so I don't use those. I don't look at any of the results from those. And then here is the order. If I wanted to change the order, I could just call this 6, and it'll rearrange it. If I want a question to go in between these two, I'd call it 1.5. Like if I wanted to put this one in between, I'd call that 1.5, and I'd save it. So I'm going to actually save this again and get out of it and go to one that's already filled out, because it would take me a little while to fill this out. So I'll go to assessments, and it's ABC pre-made with questions. So this is the one. So this is it. It's got, I want to see the question. So I'm going to go to the question setup. This is how I see the questions. So here they all are. You can also have short answers. There are a bunch of different kinds. Short answer, if the answer is 10, when you enter in 10 to the answer, it will automatically correct it. They used to have anybody have bubble readers anymore? I don't think so. Open-ended, multiple choice, and I chose the right answers here. You can see that. So I set all that up. I set up all the points. So before I go on, I'm going to see if you have any more questions. So you just enter in the information.
So this particular template is a stock template for any of these types of assessments that you enter. So you have to choose between open-ended, multiple choice, short answer. So that's not going to be one of the sections or one of the columns, right? Because
right. These are the questions, and the questions will go like this question is part of the OA section. Mm-hmm. This one's part of the OA section, right? The questions are just separate questions.
And so in this, even though in your spreadsheet you had OA and the NTB, you wouldn't necessarily want that. That doesn't go.
Not yet. Yep, not yet. First, you just do the questions. When you get into the rubric and setting up the sections, you have to figure that one out. So that's the next step, actually. The next thing you do is you go to assessment detail and set up your rubrics. Now, I've already set them up for this, so you'll see how it is. Operations and algebraic thinking, which is the other one. Where's that one? Where's my little spreadsheet? Nope. Where is my spreadsheet with all that? Don't save, I don't care. I'm sorry. Where is it? Unit 5 worksheet, here it is again. Of course, it doesn't want to open. There we go. So back to if you look at the assessment, the actual assessment, question 1 was an AO, and these are going to be my sections. OA, actually. So my sections are going to, one of the sections is going to have any question that's in operations and algebraic thinking, any points from that section. NBT section is going to have any questions that are related to the numbers in base 10 questions. And then fractions for NF, any question that's a fraction question will go in this section, or the points from those sections, those questions. So here's my first one. The total was worth 23 points, so I put that there. I don't want it to auto score. I don't want any of these. I don't want it to show. And I picked cut points. You'd have to be a little more scientific about it, but I just picked them right now. You could pick whatever you want, and you could make this worth 60% and 70% and 90% and 100%. You could, like I said, you could put any words in here. So that's what I did. I put any words. Now my next section, numbers in base 10, which is this one, and it'll include these 4 questions, is worth 7 points. So I put a 7, and then I just broke it up however I could for this example. And I gave it some other weird words. Then I had a fraction section, which is this, only worth 3 points. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And I didn't put any words in there. Total was 33 points. I added them up. And then I think I actually calculated, this is 100%. This was 80%, 90%. So I can put decimals in here or fractional numbers in here, and it will take up to 19.8. So if I gave somebody half a point, it would take that into consideration. And again, I put any words I wanted, and I saved it. I want to show this auto score, and I save it. Usually when I do this part, I get lots of errors, and then I fix them. It tells you what the error is, and usually you can figure out what they mean, but not always. You can also put, I don't know what this is. I've never seen that. You can also put in the standards, which I'm not sure I did with this one. If I go back to assessment detail, question setup, and then align the questions to the standards. Maybe I did. So the first question, I know, actually, now I have to go back to my assessment. Blah, blah, where is it? That's not it. There it is. My first question is 4OA1. So here's Mr. Torres, the first question. I have already picked these. So this is 4OA1. And I marked them all, actually. I probably shouldn't have done that. I'm going to go, I'll show you in a minute. But so I've got them all aligned to standards, and I'll show you how to do that. I'll get out and show you. So let's say question 7, 4OA2, that's right. So those are all created. I'm going to go back to this builder menu. And one of the reasons it's not like, normally I could go in and change the questions and the standards, but since this test has already been corrected and students have been entered, it won't let me make any changes. No changes allowed. So if I really needed to change something, I would have to make a copy of this assessment, but.
Right, but as soon, if you haven't entered in any student data or done anything like that, then you can always make changes up until you enter the data.
Right, so let me do the one that we just created. Nope, that's the no question, pre-made. Where was it? ABC with questions. This is the one we were just making that I only made half of. If I go to question setup, define the questions, I could fill in the rest of my questions. I'm going to go back to the builder menu, which is right here, and I'm going to align standards. So I'd go here first, and there's a piece missing. They're supposed to give me the list of standards. I'm going to have to tell them that that is not, there's something missing here. There's a place usually right here where you would select the standards that you want to use. Do you want to use the Common Core? Do you want to use Manchester standards? Do you want to use science standards? So you have to tell it which standards, and it will give you a list. And interestingly enough, it is not giving you the standards. So there's a problem with this. So I would check Common Core 4th grade, and it would give me the list of them, and then I could pick the standards that go with each one. I'm sorry about that. Back to the builder menu, I can assign, I've already created the sections, so I can auto-generate the sections based on the standards, manually align them, or auto-generate them. Don't ever auto-generate them because they come out so wacko that they don't make any sense, and then you have to delete them all. Like I would have probably gotten 15 different sections. So always manually align the sections. And again, the standards aren't here, so we can't really go through that. So you're gonna have to ask me when you do that. You're gonna actually have to call me and ask me how to do it, okay? That will make you call me. So let's go back to the one that I made, pre-made with questions.
Would it not be showing you because you didn't define all of the questions yet? Or
No,
is maybe a
no, it should have showed me, yeah. There's definitely, I mean, I don't know. I haven't used this in a little while, so I don't know what's wrong with it. But this is the one I created before. And if I go to question setup, I can't change this, so I can't even look at them. which is too bad. If I want to upload data, I'll do it here, and I'll do that in a minute. I'm not going to do it right this minute. You can see that I have, for 2014, I have 19 students that I've added. And I click on these students and see who they are and how they did. So these are all the students I entered for last year for this test. Let's click on Mark. And this is the student detail page. All of his information is together, which is the huge benefit of Performance Plus. He's taken a lot of state tests, a lot of NEWA tests, and here's this one, getting stronger. So it was only the total that I wanted to show on the student detail page. And remember, these are the words I put in there instead of L1, substantially below, or L3, proficient, or L2. I hate those words. So you can put anything you want. So click on that, and then I can see the detail. I can also go in to grade the assessment or view the questions. So if I want to change one of his answers, like there was some answer that was different, I could go in here and change it. And I can see how he answered each question. I'm going to just update it and go back out. Back to the assessment detail page. Oh, I got to get out of the student assessment detail. Let's say I want to grade this student. Hopefully I can do that. I'm going to grade a student. So I'm going to click here. And even though this was last year, oh, there it is. I'm going to click on Maple Elementary and show students. Let's say I want to hand add this student's answers. So I've got her test in front of me with her answers on it, and I've already corrected it. And I know that this is worth 4 points, and she got 3. And then I tab to the next one, and she got 2. And I tab to the next one, and she got 4. And in this was a multiple choice. She chose B. And I don't know if that was the right answer or not, but she chose that. So here's 3 points. And on this one, this was the open-ended one. She said 12, even though the answer was 10. This was worth, so you continue on like this, and then you update it. And you can see her information here. I didn't finish this, and you can see how she did. The average, she got this, and the average for all the students was this. And I could fill in more or not. I can update and return to the list and go to the next student. The other way is to upload data once it's created. So I'm going to go, I want to go back to the assessments, pre-made with questions. And this time I want to upload to here. So let's try and upload to this one, see if we can do it this time. So I click on the upload scores, and it's going to tell me that I can't do that here. You can't upload scores for a framework with questions on this assessment detail page, only with totals. So what you have to do is get out of that, go into question setup, scroll down, make sure you get the right year. Many times I have put the data in the wrong year. I had to get it all out and put it all back in again. So I'm going to upload answers, my student answers, to this file here. And again, I can choose a file that has the student ID and all the answers, or the student ID in the first answer, the student ID in the second answer. See how these are all the same? I don't know why you would do it like that, but I never have. I've always chosen this one. I'm going to get my data and show you what it looks like. So this is it in a spreadsheet. So here are my student IDs, student code, state codes. And across the top, I first have to have student underscore code. That has to be there. Then across the top, you can have anything you want. So A, B, I think it just doesn't, well, it must look at them, because if I had dog twice, it would tell me I had dog twice. But it will just, you can put, probably what you do is this. You really can put in anything. Like if I had a 7A, 7B, I could put that in. So now I save that, but I have to save it as a CSV file. So save as, and I'm going to save it as.
CSV is right at the top.
That CSV though is, I don't know what that is, and I want a comma separated one. So there, it gives you a whole bunch of CSVs.
Oh, okay. So you need comma separated. Okay. Yeah.
So I don't, they may all actually be the same. I don't know, but I just always make sure I use that one. So I'm going to, this Zoom thing is in our way. This is the CSV file. It has been saved. So I usually leave it open in case I have an error, which I very often do. I'm going to choose B format, where every student gets their own row. So I'm going to choose B, and I'm going to upload this one. This is the one we just saved. And upload. If there are errors in it, it will tell me right away. Not right away, it'll tell me. And if there aren't, so it did it. There are 21 records updated. So I'm going to return, and it said 21, but there are only 19. Sometimes if you have garbage in the bottom of this spreadsheet or on the side, it will tell you the wrong number, but there really were only 19 uploaded. And here they are. It was the same 19. I can create reports from this now. I can look at each student individually. So she's got one from last year and this year. Exact same question. I can see, I mean, usually a student wouldn't have the same tests, exact tests one year and the next. They usually would have the 4th grade version and the 3rd grade version, but they could. Math facts, for instance, could be the same test every year. Spelling, although I doubt that. I think that's pretty much it. So it's a lot easier to create an assessment framework that doesn't have questions, but it's not as useful for information. It's much more useful if you actually have the questions. You could create a report using the report, and we're going to do some reporting. We have some reporting webinars coming up. You can create a report that shows you every single student, and you can see which question the students did the best on and which ones they did the worst on. And you can say, oh, this is great, we taught this really well. And then you look at the one they did the worst on, and you can examine it and try and figure out what it is that you taught wrong or what you didn't teach it. You never got to it, could be, but it could be some little misconception that your kids had from the way you spoke. So it's really handy to have all the questions.
And just a quick question.
Go ahead.
About the ones that you don't do down to the question level, have a specific number of points. There's no way to match that up with any specific standards or anything.
Yes, you can. Same thing. You would go, let's go to it. Oh yeah, they're all right here. So just totals. We don't have questions. Rubrics. And then you can edit the detail. I think this is where you add it. Update, no, align the standards. Here it is. So you'd align the standards, and here's where you select these things. So it's ELA standards. It's not the national core standards. It's the Common Core standards in New Hampshire. For 4th grade, show the standards. So these are my standards. And I don't know what the standard was for the first one, but maybe I did mark it. Let's say that first one was this, or this and this. It can be more than one. So for that first question, the first section, how do I know this is the first section? Align standard to a section. It should say section, which section it is here. Does it? It doesn't, but it should.
Oh, evidence. It says.
Oh, good. Evidence. That's right. Good. And then you just align it. And then the second section. So I actually I think it just did save it. So now I want to go back to the rubrics, and I want to align standards to this one. So I'd edit the detail, align standards. It's the same standards, and now let's say it's this. So align the content, and I think it automatically saves there. Yes. Nope. Update and recalculate. It's got to recalculate because I've entered people. And so you can put the standards in for that too.
Great. Which is great because when you print the report, you can also print the standards with it, which is very helpful. So that's pretty much it. If there are no more questions, but if there are questions, please ask. I didn't see any other questions. Okay, I'm going to scroll through the end of the PowerPoint and give you our information. You can find a list of all our upcoming webinars. These are the PerformancePlus webinars that are coming up. We've got creating assessments, reporting levels, and actually that's this one, using the ILP, which we're doing in March, reporting level 2, and creating a local assessment. These are non-P+
webinars we have coming up. You can read them all here. And you can find previously recorded webinars on our YouTube site. And you can find us and like us on all these different platforms. And here is our information. So please call or write and we will get you answers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Any questions, Heather? No?
I don't see any other questions. I think we're good to go. Thank you, everybody, for
See you later.
tuning in this afternoon.
Okay, bye.